So to all our listeners and to our viewers, please always stay tuned to the Beyond the Billboard LinkedIn page, because there's often posts and polls and questions and engagement that can happen on that page. But what we did is we posted a poll where we asked our audience to please let us know what they wanted us to ask you, Alex, in this episode. And one of the highest scoring pieces or items or selections was about opportunities. Maybe what are the key out of home opportunities that exist in Kenya? And then what are the top innovations at the moment that you're seeing in the market, or perhaps that you want to see more of in the Kenya market in particular?
Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's episode. As the only out-of-home podcast in South Africa, we feel a responsibility to represent the whole of the African continent. And we love inviting some of our guests from other markets to share their local industry expertise, their guidance, their local nuances and understanding of their markets to help us enrich our fuller understanding of out-of-home, not only in South Africa, but across the African continent. We have had Kingsley Owaka-Ame from the Out of Home Academy join us to discuss the landscape in Nigeria. We've had Greg Benatar from Alliance Media join us to discuss an out of home's perspective from a media owner's point of view across the African continent. And today we're privileged to have Alex Tutu join us, who is the co-founder of GigaStream Media. And he is based in Kenya and is an out of home expert in that landscape. So welcome to the podcast. Thank you for joining us, Alex.
Thank you, Livia, and thank you, Kirsty. Totally appreciate being in this podcast. A nice day to have out-of-home conversations.
Yeah, it's so great to connect with you again. And Alex and I met when we were both leading out-of-home teams at specific agencies, and we really bonded through our knowledge, understanding, and passion around approaching out-of-home from a different perspective and not taking it at face value. I think when I think back of the amount of calls and meetings that we had around discussing location data strategy, how do we take things to the next level? What tools and data are available in each of our markets, and how can we leverage that between the markets that we were working in? And, you know, I must be quite honest, I think part of that bond came through just a real drive to want to do cool stuff in out of home and really to push the envelope. So before we get into the details of today's episode, could you share with us what is GigaStream Media all about, and what are you guys offering the out-of-home landscape in Kenya?
So GigaStream Media was born out of love and passion for out-of-home. And I think the many conversations we had, looking at the gaps that the market had as a whole, from a metric point of view, from an innovation point of view, from a sustainability point of view. So there was need in the market in terms of bringing out fresh out-of-home ideas, something that gives you tangible ROI. And that is what GigaStream stands. So we believe in the spirit of Ubuntu. We are who we are. And simply in a nutshell, GigaStream is a out-of-home media tech company. So we fuse our traditional thinking with technologies that are available to giving you measurements, to making sure that we are able to do sustainability projects, a lot of passion and data different products. So when we look at it, we moved from a frame methodology to more of audience and understanding what and where our audience are, and specifically post the pandemic. A lot of things have done. So that is what GigaStream was started about. And we have passionate people working into it.
I love that. And I think that, you know, definitely I've seen that movement when programmatic digital out of home first came to market in South Africa in a real way. There was a lot of talk about programmatic happening in digital out of home. But when it did actually start to happen, there was this move away from frames, as you said, to audiences. And I love how you have kind of coupled that up together. And it sounds like you guys are definitely bringing to market that location data strategy piece, which, like I said, I know that it's such a passion point for both of us in that space. And I think that it really kind of leads me on to ask my first question for you is that in various markets across Africa and South Africa, there can be various misconceptions, right? So I would love to find out from you, when speaking about the market in Kenya to people who are not familiar with the landscape, what is the biggest misconception or misconceptions about the out-of-home landscape in Kenya?
Yes. So one of the biggest misconceptions we have in Kenya is that outdoor industry has no ROI. There's no return on investment. And this is basically in terms of the measurability point of view. So there is a lot of measurability data, and you can get basically a lot of data whereby we offer this. That's a notion that a lot of people tend to think because there is huge clutter, and by clutter it does not mean it's just because we have a lot of inventories. So currently in Nairobi and in Kenya, we have 5,500 frames. In Nairobi alone is 3,000, you can imagine. So a lot of focus and investment is geared towards Nairobi, with smaller towns not being given the priority. So again, when you look from a scalability and an impact point of view, you tend to think that there is no impact. But yet when we see on WhatsApp channels, brand managers group, the biggest reference of campaigns, they always quote a billboard. Recently, there was a furniture company just trying to educate the market how to name different beds or different furniture. So it was a very catchy but very provocative messaging. But those you would always see out of home campaigns being remembered more rather than any other campaign. So again, there's impact there. And the fact that we have this in our market is a misconception whereby you tend to think out of home has no ROI, but indeed it has a huge, huge ROI.
For sharing that, breaking that myth or breaking that misconception and just sharing some facts around out of home in Kenya. My question here is, what is out of home measurement, the lay of the land with regards to out of home measurement in Kenya at the moment? Is there a current currency? Is there a move to build the currency? Is it heavily reliant on mobile data partners, or beacons or sensors on out of home to be able to get that type of data? What does that landscape look like, or the lay of the land when it comes to out of home data in the Kenyan market?
Okay, Casti, very good question. I think when it comes to measurement is companies like ourselves, GigaStream, we've partnered with the World Out of Home to ensure that we use the standardization of measurement. And we use a lot of mobile data, which is the SDK data that we get from different platforms. When we have data which has longitudes and latitudes for all the billboards, we are able to get this data and understand how movement patterns affect in and out the city. So also partnering with other markets like in Asia and Singapore, whereby they're doing it a lot of more frequently doing this. We would love to have things like lamps and cameras, but the mobile data is what we get as fast to enable us to have this data. So it gives us a very comprehensive and it changes time. And we also buy open data from different API sources. So this is like from your Google traffic, whereby we are able to overlay. There's no one single point of truth. So the more data we have this in terms of seeing how people, it kind of gives you a silver lining of how people are moving, or even gives you a direction where to invest next in terms of where you're putting your inventory next as a media.
It definitely helps media owners knowing where there is congregation of audiences or different demographics of audiences, where to develop, where to plan their sites. So thank you for sharing that. And it leads me to ask you this question. Do you find clients that you've been engaging with over the course of recent years or currently that are really pushing you for more data planned or data intentional out of home planning? Have you seen a lot of that coming from a client side, really holding out of home accountable when it comes to, reach figures, performance metrics, how many people did they reach, live performance metrics? Are you seeing those conversations happening with clients more and more?
Yes, I think the conversation is happening more and more, and we encourage clients to have this. It brings a level of being accountable to your investments or the dollar value that the client is giving you. So, for example, we have a client just when we are entering into our planning phase, you really have to give them analysis in how you're doing a portfolio buy. You're not only just buying on a month-on-month basis the way it used to be done, but you're looking at it from a larger portfolio buy. How do you making sure that from an out-of-home ecosystem, you're not only just using the static, but you're also seeing how you're going to match with your ambient spaces, your cinema, your spatial build? Because another misconception is that outdoor is just static. But when we look at it, outdoor has many, many touch points. We are just barely scratching the surface. Is static, yes, is known, but there's a lot. The integration with data on how we use curiosity or QR codes, a product just that has been introduced. How do we reward customers? Again, out of home can be a medium that rewards your attention. So by giving you and scanning with your QR code. So there is technology that allows you to do this, and clients are really asking for this. And we are happy to say that more and more clients, also because some of them of their global reach, are holding us into accountability to this point of view.
That's fantastic. And I think that's happening not just at a local level in Kenya as a market, it's happening across the continent, it's happening internationally. Clients are holding their media owners, their media agencies accountable to provide data thinking into their out of home, right? And into the out of home planning and to the out of home reporting. But you touched on something quite interesting. You know, I love it when we start talking about some of the innovation and we start talking about special builds and we start talking about all the different amazing formats that there are. You know, we did a LinkedIn poll leading up to this episode on the Beyond the Billboard LinkedIn page. So to all our listeners and to our viewers, please always stay tuned to the Beyond the Billboard LinkedIn page, because there's often posts and polls and questions and engagement that can happen on that page. But what we did is we posted a poll where we asked our audience to please let us know what they wanted us to ask you, Alex, in this episode. And one of the highest scoring selections was about opportunities. So, what out of home opportunities exist in Kenya? And maybe I know I'm sure, just like South Africa, I know that there's many different types of format, but maybe what are the key out of home opportunities that exist in Kenya? And then what are the top innovations at the moment that you're seeing in the market, or perhaps that you want to see more of in the Kenya market in particular?
Wow. Very good question, Casti. And there's lots of opportunities in Kenya. First and foremost, the regulation is very favorable. There is no barrier to entry when it comes to out of home. I think it's one of all the most African countries I've dealt with. Kenya has the easiest entry level to set up an out of home company. And why do we say that? It's because the level of adoption or the client's need is for starters, the static sites are similar. So when one comes up with a different thing, there's high adoption and taking it up. Recently, what we have done is to see how are we going to interact with our younger population, our Gen Zs, and what comes into play is rewarding. And how do you collect first party data using through different channels in out of home? So what we have seen is we've introduced within transit spaces, which is a touch point of out of home. When you enter our buses or our taxis, you simply scan a QR code. You are able to watch an advertisement that is leveraging on second screen behavior and using your mobile phone just as an out of home touch point, and you get rewarded instantly. We've even gone further to a place whereby we are even paying utility bills such as electricity tokens. So making sure that out of home is becoming a channel for medium for good, creating that impact while making sure we are rewarding you for your attention. I think it's very powerful because very few media owners get to reward the end users. So it is something that we've done. Exciting innovations that I've seen is along how Nairobi has been set up. There's a new road that connects from the airport all the way to the city center. It's a 27-kilometer stretch, which we call it the expressway. By virtue of saving you time, we've been able to basically put brands together. We use a lot of mobile pay points in our phones. So paying the toll station, we have seen a brand like Airtel coming on board and say, pay with your Airtel money. And they've been able to brand and do a takeover on a 27-kilometer stretch. So impact is there. And then we are seeing again in terms of how programmatic has come into play, the cost in terms of programmatic buying is being adopted. And recently, that is going to be launched next week, is the first billboard that speaks on sign language. We have close to 2 million deaf people in Kenya. And how come we are not addressing this? So we've been able to translate digital out of home ads through our AI application to have sign language that caters to this market. So pushing clients that rather than having it 100% video, how do we speak from a signing community and also creating employment through this point of view? So we will have the first sign language billboard being rolled out, and hopefully we could do this for our audience who are listening all over the world. You could imagine if Times Square, Piccadilly, we could have a takeover. Just the thoughts there.
Prime Media Out of Home puts your brand front and center, wherever your consumer lives, works, travels, and shops. From eye-catching billboards and digital screens to high-traffic taxi ranks, buzzing malls, and right inside the store, we connect you to your audience at every stage of their journey. Awareness, consideration, purchase, we're there. We don't just place your brand, we amplify it, elevate it, drive it forward, outdoor, ring, mall, in-store, nationwide, Prime Media Out of Home, powering brand presence across South Africa.
That's really impactful. Thank you
Yeah.
for sharing that. And what I really hear from you, Alex, is how you love using out of home to make a difference. That's what's coming through for me here is, and I can tell how you love out of home that has social impact. And I mean, it's one of my passion points about what out of home can do for communities and for people. But as you've been speaking, and I know a little bit in the beginning before we started the recording, I picked up that that's something as a common thread that I'm getting from you is one of your passion points about out of home is the difference and the social impact that it can make. Am I right here?
You're very right, Casti. I think out of home can be a channel for media for good. Again, I'll speak a bit. When if it's protest, you get to see billboards as what is being used. Social good and out of home can deliver change. It is how do we position ourselves to making sure that we are part of culture and influencing culture in a positive way and making sure that we're just passing the baton. It's something that I'm very passionate and brands, it's a brand safety thing. There's no brand that doesn't want to play in this space and every person has different ways of just playing a part in a society. And I think it's just being the Kenyan in me. The togetherness is just a cultural thing as a Kenyan.
Exactly the same. Hey, Liv?
Yeah, it's definitely coming across. And I think when you combine passion and then purpose together, I think you can see that it becomes very easy to identify not only your business truth, but how your personal truth kind of lives through your business. So I really love that. I think the other thing I wanted to just circle back on was your discussion around the QR codes and around rewarding audiences and connecting with Gen Z. We know research available that's in South Africa through Brand Map. And we've had Brandon de Kock from Brand Map join us on the podcast before to discuss some of the insights of their data. But we know that that market specifically are noticing out of home. They're looking to out of home to connect. And I think the question on a lot of people's minds is not only what are they up to, because it seems to be a generation that the pace is moving so quickly. There's so many. I know some of the younger people in my life, some of the slang that they're using or the words that they're using to describe things, I find myself thinking, I don't know what you're speaking about, but I'm definitely not going to tell you that and lose my connection as the cool auntie. But I love that it's to find out how do we connect with that audience? How do you meet them where they're at? Because I think that's what brands are wanting to do. And I think if brands are wanting to connect with an audience in a specific way, the media formats have to be in the same place. So, or the capability. So I love that you guys have used your technology and capabilities to align. How do you connect with that audience? And it's through a rewarding system, or I think it's about taking a billboard format to the next level of engagement. It drives that loop from offline to online quite nicely. And I would love to find out from you, you know, at times, I question how many people will actually stop and actually scan something with their phone to gain a reward, or if it's a wall mural, for example, in the South African landscape in a township where you could get access to free Wi-Fi. I think the free Wi-Fi is a strong pull for people to say, okay, I will take the time. But from your market, what have you guys noticed? I guess it also depends. The strategic part of my out of home planning side is thinking, it depends on the environment, like malls, transit, airports kind of lend themselves to pedestrian engagement. But are you guys seeing roadside billboards being used for QR codes successfully, or which environments are most successful with that mechanic?
Maybe the most successful environments that we've seen, if we are to break it down, is where there's at least a dwell time of 20 minutes and higher. And when we looked at this, we passioned it with passion points. So a lot of them are into health, fitness. So places where like the gyms. Again, this younger population socialize more than us. They go out on dates. So restaurant places and
It's a
places
nice life, hey, Alex? These youngsters, hey?
it is, and they're challenging us just to interact more with each other. So, for example, what we've done is we've partnered with one of the leading restaurants in Kenya. It's called Art Cafe. And what we did was very, very simple. We converted a normal QR code where you would see your menu, and we would be able to place dynamic ads which are contextualized in different places. Over and above, if you interact with that, if you're of a certain age, you're able to get discounts within that places. So again, looking at how we do it, we've gone to cinemas, we've gone into buses, and what comes out very passionately is that they are looking for a better life, but they're looking for hacks. How is it to get my life easier? I think they have the best hacks ever. And when you incentivize them with the things that they want, so in our point, we give them electricity tokens. We give them percentages off on their free Uber rides, meal vouchers. And what is the most critical is a social currency that we've undervalued. And this is the data. Our mobile data is what? Because they want to keep talking to their friends, be it online. So we are able to keep people up to 2 GB of data. And the beauty is all you need is your phone, and it's not an app. You are able to do. So QR codes, if put in the right environments, are well. And if you're putting it on a static billboard, know that you have to have a higher dwell time. We've even seen religious institutions whereby now when you go to a church Sunday service, they ask new members to fill in the forms. So there are more and more use cases. And thanks to technology, every phone right now, majority of the phones, just your camera, there's no need of having a QR code scanner. It scans automatically. So technology is helping us and just making sure that we are being curious, hence the product curiosity.
Yeah. Yeah.
Great name.
I love that. Yeah. And I think also the passion points of connecting with that audience around saving money and, like you say, life hacks. Like, life needs to be easier because of the pace of things are so quick. I think that that also helps to kind of help guide the selection of the environments that you're focusing in, as well as how brands can engage with those audiences. Alex, I wanted to change gears quickly. And, I'm just, while we're busy sitting here chatting, I thought to myself, between the three of us, we really have held senior positions at most of the big global agencies in our markets. And I think that we've also been exposed to a range of different campaigns that we've either personally been involved or our team's been involved, or campaigns that we've seen around us that we felt like, wow, that is amazing work that has been executed. And I wanted to ask you, with a specific focus on kind of the Kenyan market, what campaigns have you seen, either that you've been involved with or that you've just noticed even that other professionals in the market have done, that has really inspired you, or you've actually sat up and thought, wow, I wish I had have done that, or that is such a cool campaign, or I did do that? Would love if you could share anything from your experience with us.
So yes, we have been involved in late nights and crafting good campaigns. When I think maybe top three campaigns, the first campaign that speaks to me is we introduced the first billboard that is sustainable in Africa, which allows you to observe carbon emissions through pollution. So we partnered with the UNEP. We plot out every places where in Kenya they have that data. And what is very, very interesting is just seeing how within the out of home production chain where we can add value. Just a simple flexi material can be used to trap emissions within this point of view. So seeing brands challenging us, because as you can see, over 5,500 billboards, those could be ways of just us trapping air. So that is one of the recent campaigns that we've done. In the past, what has gave us sleeplessness is the adoption of technology, making sure whereby we are able, when using digital out of home correctly, and making sure that you use technology to making sure people drive or educate the consumers, whereby you use cameras, doing gimmicks and interactivity with these digital screens. I think the last we did that was bantering billboard, where during traffic hours we explained or what we called through the Safaricom telco what exactly it is when they were launching their campaign, where motorists felt part of it, and it was real-time updates and dynamic creative optimization. Recently, as I was speaking earlier, is the introduction of a sign language. And I think this is something very passionate about it. Sign language, when we see in other mediums, is given a very small box for signing. why do that? Yet in out of home, we can give you the largest impact. So looking at how do we address this, because they consume things, they get to understand, and using the American Sign Language or the Kenyan Sign Language, we can pass message impactfully and using AI solutions. So those are the campaigns that I've seen. And then also, when I look at it, the comical one that a lot of people, and I wish I could take part of it, it's the furniture campaign whereby they used fun and basically they were using cultural relevance to educate people what type of beds or naming, who knew beds had names. Again, it was very that you could go and say, but it was very provocative in a contextualized manner. But you could see the thought about it, that it created a dramatic point, to the point where people are saying, pull them down. And we're like, guys, we are being educating and playful, but using cultural relevance in the right time. That is what we've been saying. And there's more to come. A lot of younger people are doing more and more creative campaigns where we've seen CGI being used quite a lot. But here in Kenya, CGI is being used in terms of a comical point of view. When you
Okay.
get to see people reimagining how they could use. So I will speak, for example, we have an ice cream brand here. Normally, when you buy that ice cream, after the ice cream, that is how we store our food in the refrigerators. So seeing content creators merging it and say it would have been a more impactful outdoor campaign showing that the same ice cream container we use is actually where we put our beans and everything afterwards to create a package with a utility afterwards. And seeing the brands responding simple from that is something very comical when you look at it.
Yeah, I love that. All the campaigns that you've referenced now are really amazing. And what we will do is we will link some of these campaigns in the post when we do publish this episode. So do keep an eye out on our LinkedIn page for these campaigns linked there for you to go have a look at all these amazing campaigns that Alex was referring to. What I wanted to ask you, Alex, is it did spark a question in my mind when you spoke about sustainability. And I wanted to ask you, is the recycling of flexes something that is done quite a lot for campaigns in Kenya, or is it something that, could be done a lot more of?
Something that could be done a lot. It has been started, whereby we see corporates taking the initiative and turning these flexes into school bags. There's
Yeah.
another company that recently made them belts, and the insights was very insightful. When you give out clothes for donation, we tend to assume everybody's the same size, so we forget to give away belts. So for the school goers who got oversized shorts, or the children home that got, so they made out very nice belts for children and school goers in these places. So we're getting to see a lot of brands doing that. But because it is not spoken about, they tend up to be used as different other things. So this is something from a sustainable within this flow of our out of home recycling and upcycling. This is where we could play, and we are seeing brands coming out again on that. But we are looking and pushing it further. We have seen the introduction of what we see absorb painting materials. So how do we making sure that, because most billboards are color coded, how do we move to the point whereby we influence policies that says, yes, you should be using this type of paint. Here in Kenya, there's a company selling it, called it Rangi Safi. And what Rangi Safi means in Swahili is clean paint. Basically, just making sure that is encouraging people. So you are able to see that corporates are asking and demystify the notion whereby sustainability campaigns are expensive. So trying to make sure that they are not expensive and you're doing good. So there is a lot of potential to this.
My last question, coming off all those campaigns you referenced, is around programmatic digital out of home, which you touched on earlier on in this episode. Is what inventory, or is this still growing in your market? But what inventory is currently available on programmatic for programmatic digital out of home buying? And have you seen any amazing campaigns being executed in this space using programmatic digital out of home buying?
So when I look at it, Kenya right now is like 20 years into the digital out of home advertising, whereby we used to have an inventory of just 2 digital screens across the country. Now we are close to 150 digital screens. Nairobi still plays a higher incidence where this trends up. And that is because simply it's the GDP of our economy and a lot of media want to focus there. Programmatic, we've seen companies coming here and partnering to create that programmatic stack, whereby we have an ecosystem of just making sure you put them in a DSP and you serve it via different SSP platforms, right? So a very good company that I would reference that is currently doing well here in Kenya is a platform from ourselves that we use. It's part of our curiosity point of view. We have been able to create day part point of view, whereby we don't chase anybody when you come and you want to do, especially for SMEs, whereby we are even using classifieds to making sure that people are able to place. So DV360 has allowed us to list our inventory. When you are now looking for and integrating it with the digital planners, just how I say, a very good example of programmatic I would use is how different automotive industries are able to quickly change things in terms of weather triggers. So when it's the rainy season that we've seen, they quickly push the wipers. When it's about tire offers, they get to see. So the automotive industry has been able to redefine how they speak, to speak about the product. So it's a very interesting. And then the other one that I've seen that they're doing very well programmatic is the real estate. It makes you feel like you want to buy the houses. So they give you different places in terms of where you're going, what housing inventory is there. If you are looking to rent out an opportunity. So if you're into the mall and I'm going to a certain floor in the mall, what you're seeing is very, very different in a different level of mall, just giving you the different types of inventories from a real estate of buying property. So it's making people easier to see how to sell, and we are using programmatic more like a directory to find things rather than just saying it's a day part. So you find businesses that have larger inventories using it to speak more at the price of one cost.
Well, I think this is a good place for us to end today's episode. Alex, thank you so much for sharing with us. I feel like we have gone through a journey discussing some of the amazing work being done in Kenya, really leaning on your local expertise. It's been amazing to hear some of the offering from Gigastream Media to understand how you guys are rooted in that purpose and that actually making a difference in out of home, and how that thread of data runs through to help improve ROI, which ultimately should result in more investment in out of home, which is what I think we're all trying to achieve, is to grow the piece of the out of home pie, not only on the African continent, but globally too. So thank you so much for joining us today. It's been fantastic chatting to you.
Thank you, Livia, and thank you, Casti. Again, wonderful job what you guys are doing, and I'm a big fan, so I can sign out and say, hey, mama, I made it.
Look,
I
Mom, I'm
love
on
that.
YouTube.
On YouTube, so yes, good.
Thank you so much for joining us. Thanks for joining us today to go beyond the billboard. Subscribe to our podcast to ensure you don't miss out on our exciting content.
Join us again to go beyond the billboard.
1,